Our first speaker is Dr. Sami Al Arian. Each of the speakers is going to speak from a particular or about a particular perspective on the issue of Gaza's future and strategic visions. Dr. Sami Al Arian is going to speak particularly about the US perspective. Dr. Sami is the coordinator of the Center for Islam and Global Affairs and the public affairs professor at Istanbul Zaim University in Turkey. During his 4 decades in the US, Dr. Al-Arian founded numerous institutions, think tanks, etc., while he was there. He has also written several studies and numerous articles focusing on US foreign policy, on Palestine, and on the uprisings in the Middle East and North Africa from 2010 onwards. We can have a whole seminar discussing Dr. Sami's 4 decades and particularly the last part of it in the US and his torture and all of that, but we're not going to get into that. Dr. Sami.
Thank you very much, Brother Naeem, and thank you, Dr. Mohsen, for organizing this important event. Getting right to it, because of the shortage of time, I'll try just to get to the main points so that we don't go over time. Before October 7th, before Toufan Al-Aqsa, the United States had a definite strategy for this part of the world, for this region, and it was centered around a normalization pact between Saudi Arabia and Israel to complement or to finish what was called the Abraham Accords. And this was supposed to be the new order in the Middle East as the US is trying to reposition itself and refocus its efforts on China, and particularly at that time during the Biden administration on the Ukrainian war. Of course, Toufan Al-Aqsa came, October 7th attacks came to derail this process. And the United States shifted quickly to a position during the war of complete support of the Israeli efforts to basically not only try to commit mass evacuation, mass expulsion at the beginning, which failed miserably, and then they tried to finish the resistance again, despite the destruction, despite the killing, the massacres, and all that. It gave Israel full support militarily, politically, diplomatically, and economically in all efforts, which in a sense also undermined the whole international order that the United States has set up and managed since World War II, which is a huge setback strategically for U.S. role throughout the world. But with that, Israel was not able, as well as the U.S., to fulfill the whatever objectives that were set up, despite all this destruction and despite the fact that they undermined their role. The Israeli government and the United States, along with some Arab client states, they were trying to establish what Israel termed, or what was termed and dubbed as the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor, which was supposed to replace the Belt and Road Initiative built by China now for over a decade. But that also came to a halt as the situation unfolded for the past 15, 16 months. Now, when we look at what happened after the US elections, is that the United States throughout the summer was trying to support Israel, and even Trump himself made it very clear to Netanyahu that he needs to finish the job, meaning whatever objectives you set up for yourself, you need to finish it, because I'm not going to wait the same way that the Biden administration waited to fulfill your objectives, which are untenable. They are not achievable. And towards the end, even before he took office, before the inauguration, Israel was pressured to sign a deal that was available at least since last May. It was practically the same deal that Israel had rejected many times before. And it was centered around the exchange of hostages or captives. At the same time, the conditions that the resistance set for itself, which is complete withdrawal, the stoppage of the aggression and the war, as well as the reconstruction and aid and so on and so forth, all the conditions, the 5 conditions that the resistance has set, were part of this deal. And then people, or the whole world, was surprised by Trump's announcement of the expulsion of the Palestinians, or what he said, taking ownership of Gaza. This declaration, this announcement, this proposal can be read in three different ways. One way is that this is serious. It's a serious proposal because he is trying to basically get or pay back for his donors.
Dr. Sami, sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to do this, but people are complaining that they can't hear you. Is there some way you could increase your microphone levels?
I'm sorry. I can just take the microphone off. Let's see if this is better. Is that better?
This sounds better to me. Is that
Okay.
good? Yes, I'm seeing nods. Okay, good.
Much better.
Trying to be fancy and use a microphone that doesn't work. Okay. So we could read Trump's proposal in three different ways. One way is that it is a serious proposal and that he is actually trying to get the Palestinians to leave Gaza. It's a long sought proposition or long sought plan by the Israeli regime, as well as the extremists within the different factions, in order to take over Gaza and integrate it into Greater Israel. But I doubt very much that anybody is taking this seriously. If Israel couldn't dislodge or expel the Palestinians after 15 months of genocide and war of extermination, there is no way that Trump would be able to do it, despite all what he's been saying, and despite his pressures on different Arab regimes. The Palestinians are not going anywhere. They're not going to just pack up and leave. And he's not going to have the Marines and the U.S. Army going there. And even if he does, it's going to fail. Another reading is that he is always as a real estate magnate, as someone who's used this negotiation tactic throughout his life. He will put maximalist proposals that will be very, very difficult to implement. But in that case, whenever his opponent or the other side would bring something that was the real target or the real objective, then the other side could say, okay, I got him to back down, and therefore it's a win-win situation, keeping in mind that his proposal is preposterous to start with. And that could be because he's trying to get the Arabs, and I think this is the phase we're in right now, to propose something that was unthinkable before, which is going to satisfy Israeli and American objectives by taking either the resistance out of the equation, or at least it will disarm itself, and then have other parts of the perhaps Arab regimes, perhaps forces, combined forces from different Arab regimes which are on friendly relations with Israel and the United States, to take over the security situation under the supervision of the Israelis, which would be totally unacceptable to the resistance. A third reading could be that he was trying to stump Netanyahu, because Netanyahu came hoping that he can get the green light for a second, for another go at the resistance, another war, to resume the war. And he didn't want to, again, be dragged into this war. He has a very long agenda. He has only 2 years, because in the midterm election in 2 years, most likely the Republicans will lose the House, because that's how it goes in the United States in midterm elections. The ruling party usually loses seats. They have only 3 seats advantage, and he needs to implement his agenda domestically and across the globe, internationally, and he doesn't have time for this thing. So he told Netanyahu, what do you want? Well, I want Hamas and the resistance out, or the the people that he's been fighting. And he said, I'm going to get every Palestinian out. So that's another reading to it. Now, what's happening, of course, is that the Arabs are scared in terms of, if this was a serious proposal, that they will not be able to withstand or fight back Trump's pressures, and therefore they're trying to come up with a proposal that would not be amenable to the resistance. So this is going to be an interesting situation for the next few months, under the threat, of course, of resuming the war. Now, again, because of the time limitation, I'm going to go quickly on the strategic thing. For the U.S., the most important strategic part of this, they believe that Israel has been able to bring back or restore back its deterrence capability. I think that's doubtful.
by many experts. We can discuss that, whether this is true or not, and that they have the main threats against Israel coming from Gaza or coming from South Lebanon. They have been repelled for the most part. It's going to take years before they are rebuilt in terms of an actual military threat, even though many of the imperatives of the US, of the Israeli, the Israeli military doctrine, as well as the strategic situation of Israel, have been undermined. And I can name at least 10, including the military aspect, because the military doctrine for Israel depends on 6 imperatives. Each one of them had been undermined: the preemptive strikes, the early warning system, the effective deterrence, strong defense, quick resolution, and escalation dominance. Each one of these 6 doctrines have been undermined. And I think more importantly, the United States wants to focus on the strategic situation, and therefore Trump is going to try very hard to complete the Abraham Accords by bringing Saudi Arabia, and behind it, they hope to get Pakistan and Indonesia to join, which effectively ends the Palestinian cause, or the Palestinian issue. Today, he announced, or the US announced, that they're going to cut off the security aid, which is for the first time, despite all the previous ups and downs, the security aid to the Palestinians by the US, which is effectively paying for their training and salaries and everything and management. If that is cut off, that is the end of the Palestinian Authority. There's no more Palestinian Authority, which tells you exactly where they are heading. They are trying to end this Palestinian situation. They don't want a two-state solution. That's over. That's done. No one is going to go within the Trump administration or within the Israeli regime to even entertain the idea. So the Arabs are in a very, very tough situation, because they're trying to have to continue the facade along with the Europeans and other world powers, as if that there is some kind of a peace process that could be continued. That's not going to be the case. They want to end it, and end it
1 minute, Dr. Sami.
on white note. So Witkoff basically is in charge of the Israeli situation with Gaza, with South Lebanon. But there is another strategic one which has to do with Iran. And in the minute that is left, I want to say that this is going to be the toughest one, and that's given now to Rubio and other foreign policy establishment. And the hope is that they can squeeze Iran. The bottom line, and let me end on this, the US does not want war. I don't believe Trump is looking for a war, because this will derail his whole campaign promises, as well as his domestic and international agenda, which at the center of it is China and trade, and domestically is to reconfigure the whole US system. And therefore, there will not be a war between Iran and the US. But short of a war, there will be all kinds of intimidations, provocations, and squeeze and pressure on Iran, which could trigger anything in the future. Turkey is another interesting situation, because at the end of the war, with the fall of the Syrian regime, another calculation has taken into place that added both strategically plus and minuses for the US, including now a threat where Turkey and Israel effectively have a border now, which would increase also the uncertainty of what might happen. I have many other points I wanted to make, but I will respect my moderator, and I will stop here. But if you would like me to answer any of the questions, the ones that haven't been answered. But overall, the strategic situation in the US is not as they used to be before Toufan Al-Aqsa. There are some gains, but these are tactical gains, but there are some strategic losses. These strategic losses will determine the future.
And finally, Dr. Sami Al Arian.
Thank you very much. There are at least several dynamics or trends taking place strategically at the regional and international level. At the regional level, the first dynamic is whether or not there will be a resumption of the war. That would come at the end of the first phase, which is coming by the 2nd of March, which I think is going to be extended. So possibly by the end of Ramadan, by the end of March, we will know whether there is a second phase or not. If there is a second phase, then the resumption of the war would probably be very, very low. Otherwise, if we have a resumption of the war, we're going to be back at a war of attrition. And I don't think they will be able to achieve their goals. So we will be back to where we have been or have been throughout the 15 months. and there's a lot of uncertainty there. Assuming there is a second phase, which Trump prefers, and assuming that he wants to go along with trying to press the Arab regimes to make some sort of a structure in which the resistance and Hamas will be dislodged, that we have to wait and see what kind of shape that would take. I think it's going to be very difficult to do that. The second, so there will be a lot of challenges on the humanitarian and reconstruction part. So what we're going to end up with is a frozen conflict or a contained conflict. The second dynamic has to do with the normalization process. And to have real normalization after October 7th and the genocide and the war of extermination, there has to be some sort of a real effort towards a two-state solution, which I don't think coming. I think the opposite is taking place. Israel has no interest in that, and it seems like the current administration does not favor that. So that path is going to be very difficult. It's going to come through lots of pressure. So we will see how that materializes, if it does. The third dynamic has to do with Iran, whether they will be able to reach an agreement with Iran on the nuclear program or not. I don't believe there is going to be a war, but all kinds of other pressures would take place, as I said earlier. And we'll have to see whether Iran would concede some of its sovereignty regarding this, or it will stand steadfast along with its new alliances with China and Russia. These are some of the important regional trends or regional dynamics. There are also pretty quickly some international ones. I think the Ukraine war is coming very difficult, very quickly. Ukraine is going to close with Russia's victory. Whether that is going to translate into pro-American stand and therefore pro-Israeli, or it's going to actually consolidate that victory. The other way around, also with China, there will be lots of tension, and also with Europe, there will be lots of tension. So all these could be translated also regionally. Finally, there will also be another potential dynamic. Palestine has become the issue of the world today. I'm talking about the masses, the popular support. That's going to be a destabilizing dynamics if it materializes that Palestine gets the support it got, particularly with the awareness throughout the 15, 16 months. This is something that the states don't like to see, but this could be a major change in world politics if we are going to go back and find these massive supports in the streets, particularly if the humanitarian situation worsens in Gaza.